The Dominican Republic is located on the eastern side of the island of Hispaniola, next to the Haiti, and is known as the gateway to the Caribbean. The island was discovered by Christopher Columbus in 1492. It was inhabited by indigenous Taino natives. Discovering the New World, bringing Spaniards and disease, many natives died and or assimilated within decades of his arrival. The island was repopulated by Spanish colonists and their African slaves. The country has been highly influenced by Spanish and African culture, and natives are now a true mixture of European, African, and Indian origin. The national language is Spanish. The Dominican Republic became a nation on February 27, 1844, after a group of revolutionaries seized power from the Haitian rulers. The majority of the population claimed to be Christian, 90% being Roman Catholic, which was introduced by Spanish missionaries. Even though not everyone goes to church, Catholicism is an important force in shaping their society. It's an eclectic mix of Roman Catholic traditions and African rooted religion and ceremonies. Voodoo originated by the African slaves and is practiced secretly, mainly in the rural areas and along the Haitian border. They believe that each individual has a protector spirit who rewards that person with wealth or punishes them with illness. Nature spirits oversee the external world, and ancestral spirits are the souls of dead ancestors and will protect the living if properly remembered with funerals and memorials. I chose to do my presentation on the death culture in the Dominican Republic after speaking with a client of mine who is a local doctor here, but he's from the Dominican Republic. I asked him what happens when someone dies in his country. And he said, well, we're Catholic, so we have a traditional Catholic funeral, but we have what is called la vela, which is 9 days of mourning, where people come to the home of the deceased and pay their respects. You don't have to go every day unless you're a close family member, but you have to go on the last day, especially if you didn't go to the funeral. The last day is the most important because it is honoring the spirit of the deceased so that it can pass freely into heaven. If you don't show up to the funeral or the home on the last day, it's considered to be so disrespectful to the deceased and their family that you are shunned by everyone. He chuckled and said, no one ever does this. It's social suicide. Since most Dominicans are Roman Catholic, they have a traditional Catholic funeral, which is done in a chapel for the upper middle class and upper class, or the home of the deceased for the lower class. This mainly is for cost reasons. The deceased body is put on display for viewing. If it's done at the home, it's put on a block of ice to keep it cool. Inside the chapel or the home, it is quiet, but outside it's lively, like a normal social gathering. The funeral is followed by a wake, which continues until noon the next day. A hearse takes the body to the burial cemetery, and people follow the hearse to the burial site. It's believed that the soul stays on the earth for 9 days. So after the burial, there are 9 days of mourning, or la vela, like Dr. Gomez said, which consists of a series of 3 masses. That's 3 days of grieving, which is shown by crying and reminiscing, 3 days of silence for thinking and reverence, and 3 days of release for accepting the death and separating yourself from the deceased so their spirit can pass on into heaven or their final resting place. Even though this is 9 days of mourning, people celebrate since their loved one is no longer suffering. People bring food and drinks, sing hymns, play games, and share memories of the deceased. A table of white cloth, candles, and pictures, like a shrine, is set up in a room for the deceased so everyone can come to the home and honor their spirit. On the ninth and final night, a big meal is made for everyone, including the deceased, with its own table and place setting to celebrate the loved one that has died. The spirit passes through the party at midnight, gathering food and saying goodbye before moving on to their final resting place. They believe that death is a part of life